Mayor Taylor?
And here.
Councilmember Rodina?
Here.
Councilmember Briggs? Yes. Councilmember Iyer? Here. Councilmember Watson? At home.
And a motion to conclude the agenda moved by Rita Iyer. Discussion? Favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. And motion to conclude the minutes moved by Briggs Rodina. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved. Unfinished business. There's none. New business, there is some. Report.
So a question came up in the last council meeting, which I think was appropriately resolved at the meeting, but it clarified that we may want to be clear in our rules about what we call tabling versus postponing indefinitely versus postponing definitely. The clearest of these is postponing definitely. In front of, you should have a copy of that page of the rules that is pertinent. Postponing definitely is very clear in the rules and is what was used at the last meeting. And was actually a result of the most recent edits of the rules is when we put it postpone definitely. So the confusion then was with a motion to lay on the table versus a motion to postpone indefinitely. Just as a reminder, when our rules don't address anything, there's a reference in our rules that we follow the Roberts rules when our rules are not specific on something. Our Rule 12 does address a motion to lay on the table, which says that a motion to lay on the table shall only be in order when something else of immediate urgency has arisen, or when something else needs to be addressed before considering of the pending question is resumed. So technically, we could have used the motion to lay on the table to say that we need to consider something else needs to be addressed before the pending question can be resumed. We were not incorrect in postponing definitely, just so that's clear. We were not incorrect, but we could have used this. It further says that a resolution that has been tabled for 6 months shall be considered abandoned and may not be the subject of a motion to take from the table. By implication, if there's a motion to take from the table before 6 months expire, it could come back to the body. Postponing, any questions on tabling?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I still would have an issue with I guess if you can go into a little more detail about the second clause, when something else needs to be addressed before consideration of the pending question is resumed. The way I read that is in that meeting, something else needs to be addressed.
Yeah, so I did, sorry.
No, it's fine. And while you're looking at, I would just add that, and I said this during the meeting, but I want to reiterate it. To me, it's really, really important to be very clear about when to use this motion because it's ripe for abuse. Because it allows for someone to make a motion to table something, and if they, as long as they get the support, as long as they get one other council member to support that, all discussion of the issue is then ceased. And that's it. And so it is something that can be used to, in ways that are not good. And so I really want to make sure that our rules around it are super clear.
So I would say that if you look at the Roberts rules, it does contemplate because it says that a motion to lay on the table enables the assembly to lay the pending question aside temporarily when something else of immediate urgency has arisen. So in that sense, I think it does contemplate for that meeting. I'm using the word meeting because we don't have defined sessions. But our rules don't. So one area of confusion arises because we say our rules are what we go by unless they don't address it. And as currently written, our rules would allow it to come back in 6 months. We could edit this rule to make it.
Yeah,
definitely could edit this rule to say tabling is for that session. And then we could add, like the rule 12B, talk about postponing indefinitely, which I will address. That is one way to distinguish between tabling and postponing indefinitely. And I think that would be totally acceptable, and that's what we want to do.
Because I don't know when this rule was written, but
I don't know.
it definitely seems to me that it goes beyond Robert's rules in a way that opens the door for hijinks.
I don't know when it was written either. I know that 12A was added in the last round of edits, but I don't know when 12 was written.
Yeah, and I think the important piece is clarity around meeting versus legislative session. Because when I read Robert's rules around postponing indefinitely, it was often referred to as killing that for the session, which I interpreted to be a legislative session of, in our case, a year, as opposed to that meeting session. And so I think that's where some clarity would be needed if we're going to address it in our rules.
Yeah, and we did that, like if you look at 12A, which is the recent edit, we use the word meeting. So I think we just have to take a holistic rule of, look at Rule 12, clarify that tabling is for a meeting if something else of urgency has arisen, and then perhaps add a 12B on postponing indefinitely. Now, Robert's rules do talk about motions to postpone indefinitely, and they do say that motion, if an affirmative vote takes place on a motion to postpone indefinitely, it can still be reconsidered. So it doesn't say taken back or taken back from the table, which would be totally different. But in that case, I think we would default to meeting Rule 13. So the reconsideration would be under Rule 13, which would say that a council member who voted with the prevailing side may bring it for reconsideration at the next regular meeting. So I can go through and clarify, this is when tabling happens, this is when postponing indefinitely happens, this is when postponing indefinitely happens. If you postpone indefinitely, you can reconsider under Rule 13.
But that only allows.
It doesn't have to be
indefinitely for one meeting. Because
essentially.
Right. And where I think the goal of last meeting was to postpone to an undefined date.
Yeah.
And which would not likely have been a single meeting.
No.
And so I think that's where the question is still coming up as to if we don't know exactly when this might come back, but we know it will come back, what is our best option?
What we did, which was postponing to an event person.
But under Robert's rules, though, postponing indefinitely something that's postponed indefinitely can be brought back at any time.
It doesn't say brought back, it said reconsidered.
Or reconsidered.
That's the word they use, which is why I said that we would have to default to 13.
Which only allows us to come back to the next meeting.
So then, do we need to address that then? And then
if we want to.
Yeah.
Do the.
I mean, this has been something, this has come up before, and, you know, in the past, sometimes tabling has been improperly used because we haven't had clarity on this, and I would like to see, I guess I would like to see it, all the pieces of it addressed. And I don't think that we should have something in our rule that hamstrings us in a way that Robert's rule wouldn't.
So let's say at the last meeting, the vote was to postpone indefinitely, hypothetically. Ideally, what we would like is for our rules to allow that motion to still be brought back for how long? Right? What does
Robert's rule say?
Robert's rule says default to reconsideration, which is in Rule 13, which we say is one meeting, but we can change.
But what is Robert's rules reconsideration?
It doesn't give us time.
To my eye, reconsideration is awkward in this context because it requires prevailing side. The point of the indefinite postponement is because we don't know, because we don't know either how long or what precise predicate fact is necessary. It seems like a logical way to bring something back is by resolution.
I would still think you would want it to happen. I mean, you don't want something that's been postponed indefinitely to come back, say, 2 years from now.
Sure, so but fair enough, like a time frame of, a max of 3 months.
And that's, I guess, what I'm seeking guidance on, like what would be the appropriate.
Or to my eye, it's usually like up to 3 month postponement, waiting upon the council vote to bring it back, which could be effective at that same meeting.
So out of curiosity, why 3 months? Why not anytime within that next calendar year? I know,
Yeah, the legislative
session, exactly. I'm just going to session concept again,
Because it could be something, because it could be November 28th.
Yeah.
Because the meeting could be, the meeting at which this happens could be the first meeting in November.
But then it would hypothetically need to be reinstated. We don't, I'm not, here's the thing, we don't have a lot of things that die because we don't have things that are introduced and are just sitting in committee.
I think session is
But
it's irrelevant for this purpose.
But it is, in my view, awkward to allow a future council to bring, if 5 people roll off council, can they bring something back that the previous council voted to postpone
Absolutely.
without reintroducing it?
Well, it would be reintroduced by the postponement.
By the bringing it back.
I mean, reintroduced, but what is reintroduced?
I don't know at that point that you would need a vote to reconsider a previous postponement. You would just be bringing a new resolution or a new, because it's a new body. Is my point. And I mean, and that was Jen's point, I think, at the meeting where she said, why does it matter if this dies? We can just bring it back as a new resolution. But
For our purposes, it was more political,
correct.
right? The state, what does that say to people?
Right. I did not want there to be any indication that we were killing this. Right. It's not what we intended.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I was worried about something that hypothetically and also I'm reading that Robert's rules address reconsideration only being made at the same meeting. So I actually think we currently go further than they do.
I may have missed that. I tried to look for that timeline.
I'm trying to see where in Robert's rules, but I'm seeing lots of people say there are lots of references to it being the same meeting.
Or 13 provides for saying.
Correct. So I'm saying like removing 13 doesn't solve that problem for us.
Extending 13 is what's being contemplated, right? Like, do we want to extend?
Push on that because I don't think prevailing side is important to you.
You're saying you're suggesting more addressing in the rule on postponing indefinitely to allow it to be
brought back by resolution as a whole.
Yeah.
By the majority.
Rather than through a motion of reconsideration, actually just allowing it to come back.
Okay, so then we would just draft a whole new, we would deviate completely from Robert's rules and say, this is how we deal with.
Yes,
and which is empowering. Motions to postpone indefinitely, motions to postpone indefinitely may be brought back by majority vote.
Motions that are postponed, resolutions that are postponed,
May be brought back by majority vote.
Yeah.
We still need within something. It feels chaotic for future councils to just say anytime at all.
Expiration date makes sense.
A year? 6 months?
6 months. 3 months feels like you actually might need more than 3 months.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I was.
Session.
I don't care.
Sticking it to the legislative session also adheres more closely to rules, which would be if you could actually use postponing indefinitely to kill something in that circumstance, because it would expire at the end of somebody would have to read. It couldn't just come back. You can't refer it to admin and then admin send it back in a new legislative session.
So in your scenario, if the vote takes place in November, it would have to be a new motion, right, in the new calendar year.
Which in that circumstance means very little.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why
Yeah.
I think we should avoid artificially stopping things. Like, that we don't have that sort of introduction mechanism.
Excellent.
Sure.
Okay.
At some point, it looked like wisdom was on its way. Disappoint me, you decided not to say something, or not.
Well,
Whatever you like.
one, I will agree with you.
Oh, if you get better.
Reconsideration. Just my experience is typically that's the prevailing side of an item that was voted down. So you want to, it's the exact same item. Part of the struggle here is this has to be done in such a way that a signal is sent in advance to staff that it's coming back. We have to have certainty that that's about to happen so that we do what we need to be able to engage if you're going to discuss it or you got more questions about it. And I've also seen, as Kathleen was referring to, it's brought back, but there's a nuance in it that makes it technically new. So it's not the one that the rain there, there's been some change to it. So it's really all what you're trying to accomplish. We're doing an agenda meeting 2 weeks out, and we're setting what's going to be there. We're giving it a number, blah, blah, blah. If it's not on there anywhere, and someone just says at the table, I want to move for reconsideration, which in other places I've seen that happen, it occurs, but it's sort of chaotic because nobody knew you were doing to do that.
In the case of new versus, if you're talking about looking differently between the entities. Hypothetically, if you're bringing something back that's been postponed, you would have to bring it back and then amend it. Whereas if it were to expire after 6 months or whatever that timeline is, hypothetically, you could just bring back and with whatever changes were being contemplated. So functionally, it's a little different in that way. I don't know that it impacts us that much, but because we would have to amend something we bring back before we affect any changes to it. Making it potentially more transparent what was changed. But I don't feel actually that strongly about what the definition is. I think I ultimately appreciate Jen for bringing up that the difference here is clearly the reason that all of this is even being discussed is because the motion play on the table is not debatable. For a motion to postpone it definitely is, which allows us to lay out all of those reasons for postponing. And so that also potentially answers your question, which is hopefully someone will be explaining in that debate that the intent is to bring this back.
But we do want to give staff, when a council member is ready to move to bring it back, we do want to give staff some time to be prepared for that, to address Mr. Dehoney's concerns.
That would happen, first of all, it ought to happen in the ordinary course of doing this, but also we do have some agenda control at this juncture.
Yes, we do. Because all agenda items should now be in by Thursday at 5 p.m.
It is by definition an agenda item that has already received a measure of vetting and engagement because it's got the floor in the first place.
Isn't there, sorry, I have the rules in front of me, there is another option of amending that. The council agenda by majority vote at the table.
Yes,
right?
there is.
Yeah. So there still is,
Sure.
there is still that.
At some point, the council chooses to do this, and
Council.
wisdom of council.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, if we make this change, the idea is this is not just as currently, we are often not having this conversation because we're often postponing definitely, which should still be what we aspire to do.
Yeah.
This is a rarity that we run into a situation where we just don't know what.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Clear
Well, sometimes it's only clear when you start writing, so at the next meeting, I'll have a draft.
We can do it 6 months, back by resolution.
Okay. Got it. Okay. By majority vote, not reconsideration.
Yes, with majority vote with debate.
Yes.
For both the bring back and the postpone.
Yes.
Carries an automatic.
By staff. Okay.
It's been sitting there for 2 months.
Okay,
People need, well, what is it?
yeah.
It
Okay.
should just automatically be an explanation
Even
of
if it's, sorry, didn't
the
mean
item. No, sorry.
to you. Even if it's a council item, like something that's council business, do you still want to have the opportunity to? You might just say, we have nothing to say.
It's just your business, no, but
Right.
Yeah, but staff might just say staff has nothing to add, right?
Yeah, particularly though, I mean, like hypothetically, that staff may not be ready for it to come back and someone could put a resolution on the agenda. That likely would get voted down. But I guess that also gives you the opportunity to say we weren't ready for this to come back in your staff introduction.
Okay, we'll try my best.
not much to update. Just to point out, we're doing interviews for the Economic Development Director on the 23rd. That will conclude the hiring for my office. I am still going to participate in the hiring process for the transportation manager, but that's not my job. That's not a direct report, so I'm not running the process. And that'll happen relatively soon. We are still gathering information relative to unarmed response. I leave for Atlanta tomorrow to visit the new deflection center down there. And finally, we are working on earmarks. We had a meeting with Senator Peters' staff this afternoon. They gave us some advice about the kind of projects we should be looking to bring forward. So we got a lot of hustling to do, get ready for that. I will just say the advice is super pragmatic, hard, brick and mortar, kind of easy to define things. Than anything else, not gonna fly. So we'll work on our recommendations. That's all for me.
Lots to update you on. Some good news. Well, it proved very difficult to fill Mr. McDonald's job. There are several open positions in the city across various types of entities that are basically looking for the same talent, and none are filled. But we have an excellent solution that we are all very happy with. Mr. Frost is moving into the position of land use attorney. So what's envisioned is that we will now recruit for a more junior attorney. And Mr. Frost, Ms. Vargas, and said new attorney will form the three pillars of our land use real estate development group, including easements. And Mr. Frost will train the new attorney on the easement work that he was doing, and possibly also public art. So I actually think that's going to be great for the department. Mr. Frost is talented, he's smart, he's been here 16 years, and he needed an opportunity to grow. And I think he's excited about it. I can see that. So, Ms. Vargas is excited. She likes working with Mr. Frost. The planning department is excited. Everybody's excited. Now we just have to find a new junior attorney. So that's good. we have a dangling item that we need to close the loop on, and it's in my court. We wanted some adjustments to the travel reimbursement rules, if you remember. And I had some feedback from you. And as I was preparing for today, I realized that we never closed the loop on that. So next meeting, when I bring you these edits, I will just also send you some reminders on what we talked about, and hopefully we can close both loops together. Ms. Onegrash is hoping for some feedback on the communications template. So that's just a reminder. And the final thing on my list is, oh no, actually there's one thing before we get there. The event certain to which the motion was postponed was a meeting of this committee. And I think just at the pace that things are moving, we might need to have a special meeting to enable that to happen. I don't have a date yet because all the background work has not been done for me to tell you this is the date we can meet on. But I'm hoping that we can meet sometime before the February 3rd meeting is my hope, that we can have a special meeting. I will hopefully send out some suggested dates to you in the next couple of days. And if you are out of town or something doesn't work before the February 3rd, it's not the end of the world. Like, we can always do it later, but just to put that on your radar. And we can also just do it just before the council meeting if it's convenient for you to come up, on the same day. That might also work out. And then the last thing on my agenda is that I am beginning the process of my evaluation. I waited for the holidays to pass after Mr. Dahoney, but I'm beginning that process. I will probably work with Ms. Bell again. She seems to be the most familiar with how process in the city works. So that's coming to you also at the next meeting. That's it.
Here's to that. Seems like if we are going to work with Ms. Bell, can we provide some proactive feedback about the process from last evaluation? Because I think there were some confusing aspects to the survey that maybe we can resolve before.
What I was hoping to do is to actually bring you like an outline of this is how it's going to work. Here's who's going to get what date. And I can have Ms. Bell at 10 next meeting, and we can, if there's feedback, you can share that with her, then we'll that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in particularly that it should not, the survey to council members and to staff should not be the same survey. They should be different, not just like answer half of the question.
Right.
That are all mixed, yeah.
Okay.
That was a big one.
I would say as a matter of process too, those, at least for the council, the feedback in the surveys that we got and all the reminders were constantly coming to our other inbox. And the consultant didn't follow up with members who didn't fill out surveys.
Yeah, they do an auto message. Yeah, another generated message, so like that as well.
Yeah, so it would be nice if she reached out personally. Yeah, in that time frame. I personally was traveling and missed it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I will definitely say both those points, George, that the survey should be tailored the same, not the same. And that the email should go to your city addresses and there should be personal follow-up. I'll say that. Nothing else. Anything else? No, we don't.
Are we all set? Second Tuesday, is that right?
My potential 6 o'clock conflict is cleared now, so.
I sent you the recurring series for the year, so it's already on your calendars. I just want to make sure it still works for everyone. Yep.
Yeah.
Approved.
Do we need,
Would you like to?
we have a motion to approve the 2025 calendar?
I'm okay. Sure. Mayor Briggs.
Okay.
Discussion, all in favor, opposed, it too is approved. Excellent. Is there any information or upcoming business?
Oh, I think I kind of rolled that into my update. Oh, that's fine.
Just that I was awaiting feedback from one other council member who indicated they wanted to provide feedback. Yep.
Okay.
And then I've got it bundled to contact her.
And when, I showed that during, when deputy joining us?
Beginning of March, you're going to 60-day notice. But she will be joining us at Cobblestone on February 12th, which is when we go into our AED budget. So,
anything else, Jan? Public comment.
Nice to be here. I brought a visual. First, I would like to thank Mr. Mahoney for his memo of January 6th, talking about the center of the city. I spoke at a recent meeting at the Ann Arbor District Library where they were asking for input. And the reason that I spoke up that night and the reason I feel some responsibility for bringing forward a viable plan for a new district library is I was credited by the library board with defeating their 2012 bond proposal for a new library. I can't take all the credit because it was not a good plan and it was somewhat ill-defined. But that defeat allowed us the opportunity to look again at how we can build a library. And one thing to remember is that while any type of land transaction vote regarding the center of the city might require, but would only require the voters of Ann Arbor. But the Ann Arbor District Library and the people who have taken interest in this include parts of 7 other townships. It's about 120 some square miles, so it's a much larger area and many, many more people. The proposal that came from another former council member, Stephen Kunzelman, many years ago, was to build the library on the parking structure. We know that the supports are there. We know that the library could build there, still sell the air rights, put the housing above it, and it would be probably a $10 million savings to them. It would be done probably 2 or 3 years earlier, greater sustainability. I mean, there's a long list of benefits of doing that. Whenever I mention it, the first thing that comes up is a lack of trust. They don't trust the city in terms of engaging in an agreement for a land transaction so that the library could be built there. And I really would hate to lose that opportunity to build a new library there. And then have some type of community center and features on what is now the library building. So that's, again, thank you. And it just needs to be a very transparent process with what's happening in this country. I think everyone is very tense and on edge, and the more that we can be transparent and collaborative, the better for our community. So I don't want to be part of this process, but I'm available if anyone wants any history on what happened back in 2012. So thank you. If I have 5 seconds, I'll just say that I have mentioned for at least the last 10, if not 20 years, that we need a transportation manager who has a civil engineering degree and a master's in urban planning. That is what most progressive cities have. We are lacking operational oversight in the transportation area, and that, I believe, is contributing to our excessive crash rate. Thanks.
No one else in council would like to speak at public hearing? Is there anyone online who'd like to speak at public hearing? I'll bring first, but it was moved by our Regina discussion. All in favor, opposed, or adjourned?